Hello everyone, you're welcome to the Women Lighthouse podcast. This is a community for purpose-driven women who desire to live their dreams and aspirations. Our mission is to inspire you to live your dreams one day at a time while serving as a beacon of hope and guidance. We will be addressing various issues related to womanhood. Join me as we explore our journey of life together. I am your host, Unyime Hamilton. Hello ladies, you're welcome to another episode of the Women Lighthouse podcast. It's great to have you here on the show today. Today, we're going to be talking about self-care for women, prioritizing your well-being. Basically, I'll be sharing with you what self-care is about, why is self-care important, and also what are some reasons that women usually give when it comes to neglecting their self-care. So I want you to relax and listen to this interesting episode. Stay tuned. You're welcome back. So let's get right into it. When we talk about self-care, basically we're saying anything that you do to keep yourself mentally stable, emotionally, physically, socially, and spiritually healthy. So a dictionary definition for self-care says that it's a conscious participation in activities that promotes healthy functioning and enhances a person's well-being and quality of life. So there are certain things you need to pay attention to when it comes to self-care. First, it has to be a conscious effort. It's not necessarily something that you would always feel like doing, but you need to be able to take that conscious step and make that conscious effort to take care of yourself. Also, whatever you are doing consciously has to be aimed at promoting a healthy function. So if what you're doing consciously will have unhealthy benefits, then that's not self-care. So you think of it has to benefit me health-wise. And when we talk about health, it's not just physical health. We're talking about emotional health, mental stability, spiritual health, and even social health, your relationships, your associations. So now that we have an idea of what self-care really is, why is it even important? We always see, especially when it comes to women are good at neglecting themselves. And I am a very good example of that. I know I've struggled with issues with regards to self-care, especially after getting married and becoming pregnant. So that was like the first phase. When you're pregnant, most times, at least for my pregnancies, you're practically not in the mood to do anything. You're not in the mood to make up. You're not in the mood to rub cream. You're just tired and lazing around. So for me, my pregnancies were struggling like from beginning to the end. So I was just not in the mood for anything. So during my pregnancies, I rarely took good care of myself. So why is self-care important? Self-care is important because first, it keeps you physically fit. Women are very, very conscious about their physical appearance. So if you neglect self-care, you don't expect to have a good physical appearance. Now, when I talk about appearance, from head to toe, your looks, your dressing, your physique, basically. So when it comes to physical fitness, self-care is very important in order to stay physically fit. Another thing we talk about fitness is also sleep. A lot of women neglect sleep, not intentionally, not intentionally, maybe as a result of just being overwhelmed with a lot of things and wanting to pay attention to every other thing, they tend not to have adequate sleep. So when you pay attention to yourself, you pay attention to your physical appearance as well as your sleep patterns. Also, self-care is important for your mental well-being, like we mentioned in the definition. When we talk about your mental well-being, we're talking about your reasoning. Imagine if you're not paying attention to yourself mentally, you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, you're experiencing burnout. Definitely, your reasoning will not be coordinated. You will have that tendency of forgetting things. You will not be able to respond to things the way you ought to because you are overwhelmed and there's a lot going on the inside in your mind. Also, it will reduce your productivity as a woman. Once you're not paying attention to yourself mentally, your productivity level reduces. Ideally, if you should spend maybe 10 minutes doing something naturally, you could spend times two of that time paying attention to that thing. So that's what happens when you don't pay attention to yourself mentally. Also, self-care is important because of your emotional well-being. Women especially are emotional beings naturally. When you are in a right state, you are already an emotional being. Then you can now imagine if you are overwhelmed and you're stressed and you're not paying attention to yourself emotionally, you will be drained. You will be easily irritable. You will experience mood swings. At some point, you could even go towards experiencing depression or anxiety, and a whole lot. Your emotions will just be over the place. So this is really key. Paying attention to your emotional wellness is very important with self-care. Also, it reduces stress and burnout. In fact, this is a very, very important point. When you do not pay attention to yourself, spirit, soul, and body, you experience burnout. And when I say burnout, what I mean is when you are in a complete mental, physical, and emotional exhaustion. So burnout in this case is not just physical exhaustion. Mentally, you are exhausted. Physically, you are exhausted. Emotionally, you are exhausted. So you can see the pattern. When you neglect your physical fitness, you neglect your mental wellness, you neglect your emotional wellness. All this will result in stress and burnout. So when you pay attention to yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, you would not experience burnout. Another thing that self-care does is that it makes you age slowly. Women are primarily controlled, that's biologically now or physiologically, we're primarily controlled by our hormones. And as we age naturally, that's by age, we experience hormonal changes. But the moment you are stressed and you experience burnout, you have a high level of cortisol in your bloodstream, and that is a stress hormone. So what cortisol does is it keeps you active. It keeps you on a high alert. Cortisol will trigger the presence of adrenaline, and there's this fight or flight. Any little thing you're agitated and all that. So when there's a high level of cortisol in your body, definitely you would age faster. Research has confirmed this. So it's important to pay attention to yourself so that you do not have a high level of cortisol in your bloodstream continually. And with that, the aging process would be slower. And lastly, another reason why self-care is important is that it improves your confidence level. When you pay attention to yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, you are confident, you are a balanced woman. There is nothing anyone will tell you or anything anyone will do to you that will affect your morale as a woman. So it's important because it helps to improve your confidence level. Now, let's move on to certain reasons that women give when it comes to neglecting their self-care. Definitely, to them, there will be justifiable reasons. For every action, we would always find something to justify why we do not do it. So I'll be sharing these reasons with you and also telling you how you can tackle each of these reasons so that it's not an excuse for you to neglect your self-care. First, you will commonly hear, I am very busy. I don't have time. I'm busy. I have a lot going on. My work, I'm busy with work. I'm busy with the kids. I'm busy with my husband. I'm busy with my parents. There was a time I felt like that. I would commonly tell my husband, why is it that it's like everyone is draining me? Everyone wants something from me, but no one is giving to me. That's how I felt. Always complaining, what about me? What about me? Why is it that everyone is demanding from me? The kids are demanding from me. You're demanding from me. My parents too demanding from me. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. That is a sign of neglecting self-care. So that excuse that you're always busy. And one thing I want you to know is that there was a reason why God created the world in 6 days and he took the seventh day to rest. That's a sign that it was important, as omnipotent as God is, that's all powerful. He still saw the need to rest. So if God saw the need to rest, why do you think that self-care should be neglected? Time is not an excuse. So how do you address this issue of being busy and not having time? You need to understand that scheduling is important. The way you would tell yourself, oh, today I need to take the kids to school. Today I need to ensure the dishes are done. Today I need to go to work. I need to cook. I need to do this. I need to do that. In that your schedule, include self-care. First, you need to ask yourself on a daily basis, what can I do? What little thing out of 24 hours in a day can I do to make myself feel healthy and whole and happy? Identify that thing you can do, even if it could be to just close your eyes and just rest, or listen to music, or exercise, or take a walk, whatever it's going to be healthy and relaxing for you that you could do on a daily basis. Schedule it, and schedule a short time. You could say, oh, in 10 minutes, in 5 minutes, in 15 minutes, and you start small. That's another thing when it comes to scheduling of your time, because you're trying to build a habit. So you start small and you build it up from there. Then you do the same thing for weekly. On a weekly basis, which day can I dedicate? It mustn't even be the same day every week. But what can I do this week that would be healthy for myself? And you do that also on a monthly basis. When you do that and it becomes the habit, it goes a long way to help. The next excuse women give is being guilty. Oh, if I pay attention to myself, doesn't that mean I'm selfish? That feeling of guilt and feeling that self-care is an act of selfishness is a common excuse that women give. So when we talk about guilt, guilt comes when you are doing something that is wrong. So the first thing you need to ask yourself is paying attention to myself bad? From the things that we've outlined and mentioned about the benefits of self-care, which of those things are bad on that list? When you look through it, you see that they are all good and they are all beneficial. So that shows that you are not doing anything wrong. So when you are not doing anything wrong, you have no reason to feel guilty. So how can you address the feeling of guilt or feeling that self-care is an act of selfishness? You need to understand the importance. That was why I started with sharing why is it important. When you understand the importance and the benefits, you would know that you're doing the right thing, and that would be an encouragement for you to pay attention to self-care. The next reason that women give is the fact that I have so many other people to take care of. Naturally, for women, we are nurturers. We tend to prioritize every other thing and every other person before we prioritize ourselves. It's the motherly instinct. That was what God created us with. So it's a natural phenomenon for women. But we as women need to understand that in as much as it's important to prioritize others, if you do not pay attention to yourself, you wouldn't even be available to pay attention to other people. While I was thinking about this topic, the story about Mary and Martha in the Bible came to me. And I really evaluated the whole thing. And I was like, wow, this is really a beautiful story to depict self-care. In this case, in case you're not familiar, let me share the story. Two sisters, Mary and Martha, they were friends of Jesus, and Jesus was passing by and stopped by their house. Mary and Martha were excited to receive Jesus, but they responded in different ways. So for Mary, she just wanted to relax with Jesus, spend time with him, listen to him tell his stories and share all he would love to share. She just wanted to spend quality time with Jesus. That's the best way to put it. But Martha, and I would say these responses were based on maybe their personalities and maybe their love language. For Mary, you would say, okay, her love language was quality time. So she decided to spend quality time with Jesus. So it came naturally for her. But in the case of Martha, Martha's love language was act of service. She just wanted to serve Jesus. So she went on preparing and preparing and preparing and preparing, doing it wholeheartedly. Because if she was doing it grudgingly from the onset, she would have said, oh, Mary, let's go to the kitchen. You can't be sitting down there with Jesus while I'm doing all the work. But she started the whole thing and it became overwhelming. And at some point, she now came to Jesus and began to complain that Mary wasn't helping her. And obviously, she had gotten to the point of exhaustion. She was tired, she was overwhelmed, and she accepted she needed help. And she began to complain to Jesus. And by the time Jesus responded to her, she wasn't getting the response she was expecting. Jesus said that, Martha, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Guess what? What was that one thing? Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. That one thing which Jesus said Martha needed was self-care. That one thing Jesus said Martha needed was just to pay attention to herself. So that shows how important it is for us to actually prioritize self-care. So you need to understand that when it comes to prioritizing others, yes, you may have your love language, your preference, and all that, but you need to make a conscious effort to still, in the process of prioritizing others, prioritize yourself. So it's very, very key. And this same story will lead to the next point or excuses that women give when it comes to self-care. And that is perfectionism. They want everything to be perfect. I have been a victim of that. You come back from work, there's so much to be done. You go to work, there's so much to be done. You work, you come back, you're tired, you're exhausted. you have to fix maybe dinner or lunch for the kids, for your family. You have to tidy up the house. Maybe when you left the house, everywhere was messed up. You're coming back, especially if you don't have maybe a housekeeper or a house help, and you still have to do everything yourself. So you're trying to sort out things here, sort out things there. And you just came back from work or where you were so stressed, and you are on to another set of marathon, work at home. No break, no rest, nothing, because you want everything to be prim and proper, everywhere organized, everywhere tidy before you now finish. And you are so tired and exhausted, you are so overwhelmed. And in the process, you may even be irritable because you are under so much pressure to ensure that everything is perfect. But you need to understand that sometimes you need a break. You need to understand yourself and what works for you. If this scenario I just described is a scenario you're going through, you need to be able to take a break when you return from work. I know that was my case. I decided once I come back from work, that first maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, depending on how I'm feeling that day, I just leave everything. I can quickly make food, everyone eats, but every other thing waits. The dishes wait. My children's schoolwork waits. So that by the time I'm coming back to do those other pending things, I'm doing it refreshed. I'm not doing it grudgingly. I'm not doing it exhausted. I'm not irritable. I'm not overwhelmed. So please, it's important, in as much as you may be a perfectionist, you need to be conscious about getting a break and making sure that you are in the best state of mind before you go about sorting whatever you need to sort out. Another reason is financial constraints. Very common. Things are so expensive. The challenge is we think that when it comes to self-care, it needs to be the big things. Something as simple as basic as, depending on what your interests are, what you enjoy doing, what will make you feel good, relaxed, pay attention to yourself. You invest in those things. So you need to be able to first know that little things also make up self-care activities. Also, you need to be able to budget from it. You can't work and earn, and out of what you earn, there is no budget for yourself. It's common for women to focus on every other thing and feel that when it comes to themselves, okay, it can wait. I know I used to feel so aggrieved when my husband would come back. Maybe at that point we didn't have a lot of money, and I would feel like, oh, I can put myself on hold while we pay attention to other pressing things that are needed in the family for the children, upkeep, all those stuff. And he will go cut his hair, he will go buy something for himself, and I'll be wondering, come on, me, oh, like this. Sometimes I would stay like 3 months because I was on dreadlocks then, and I would not lock my hair. I'll just be wearing wig. And I'm like, it's not important. Let me just keep carrying it. I can use wig and just cover it. How many of us are guilty of that? And I will not buy makeup for myself. I will not, like, I could stay up to maybe 6 months, 1 year. I don't have any new clothes. And these are things that I need, not like they're trivial. Basic things. I will not be intentional about buying things for myself because I would feel it's not important. We don't have enough money. Let's pay attention to more pressing things. Until I think I listened to a video by one of my mentors, and she said that it's very important to budget for yourself on a monthly basis. You don't have to buy in bulk. If, for instance, you want to gradually change your wardrobe, you don't have to say, oh, I'll invest 50,000 naira, 100,000 naira, and just buy plenty things. No, You can decide on a monthly basis. You have a list of the things you need or list of the things you want to do for yourself. Budget and plan for it, save for it on a monthly basis. This percentage of my salary or my income is for my self-care. And whatever it is, even if it's taking yourself out, whatever it is, you plan for it, you budget for it. So it's very, very important. Very, very important. Another thing is lack of motivation. Remember, when we define self-care, we talked about the fact that it's not about whether you feel like it. It's a conscious effort you have to make. So most times, people are just not motivated. I'm not interested. I beg. I'm not in the mood. That's a common word. I'm not in the mood. You don't have to be in the mood. It's a necessity and it's a conscious effort you have to make. How can you make this possible? Have an accountability partner. Somebody that can be accountable. Oh, I want you to be my self-care buddy. This is my plan. This is what I intend to do. I need you to check on me. I have the tendency to just let loose and not pay attention to myself. So please, I want to be accountable to you. And you can even do vice versa. You do for her, she does for you. So it's very important to have an accountability partner if lack of motivation is a challenge you face. And lastly, self-worth, a low self-worth or self-esteem. Remember, we said earlier that when it comes to importance of self-care, it helps to boost your self-confidence. But if you're already having issues with a low self-esteem, then you would always make it an excuse not to pay attention to yourself. So when it comes to a low self-esteem, you need to identify what is the root cause. Why do you even have a low self-esteem in the first place? For instance, is it your weight? At that times you look in the mirror, you don't like what you see, then that's a reason for your low self-esteem. So instead of beating yourself down about it, why don't you take a step towards looking for ways to be physically active so that you could, and that's a self-care activity. Fitness, exercise, your diet, whatever, lifestyle changes. It's a self-care activity. You're doing it to boost your physical health, to boost your mental health, even to boost your emotional health. So it's very key. You need to identify the root cause. Another thing is you need to learn to speak to yourself. A mentor of mine once said, he said, the world is always speaking, but you should learn to tell your inner self to speak to your outer self, because it is the voice that is loudest that you will pay attention to. So if you pay attention to what people around you are saying above what you are saying to yourself, then that's going to be a problem when it comes to your self-esteem and your self-worth. So you need to consistently speak to yourself till you believe it, until it becomes a reality. And before you know it, you would have a better self-esteem. So I hope with all these things I've shared, you've been able to identify the areas where you may be giving excuses and how you can tackle them. I need you to know that self-care is very important for your physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, social well-being. So prioritize self-care today. This is just the basics when it comes to self-care. Another thing that women are vulnerable to when it comes to lack of self-care is when women are in an abusive situation or a harmful situation. Sometimes those situations tend to have brought you down mentally and emotionally to the point that it's hard for you to fight back. If you are in this situation, you need to understand the importance of seeking for help and the importance of accountability. Don't die in silence. Treat yourself like the queen that you are. Pay attention to yourself. Don't let anyone make you feel that you are not worth taking care of. prioritize your self-care today. I look forward to hearing from you on other ways in which women can prioritize self-care and how you have been able to prioritize your self-care. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Women Lighthouse podcast. I hope you were inspired to keep taking steps towards living out your dreams. If you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to share it with other women and leave us a review on our social media platform, which is in the description box. Also, feel free to subscribe to our channel to get notified of new episodes. Till I come your way on our next episode, keep living, keep dreaming. Bye for now.